quorum.
We are now recording.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Audit Committee meeting of the California State Bar. And I think we are going to start with a roll call so that we can establish quorum and move along with the meeting. So may I ask for a roll call, please?
Yes. Barahona,
Present.
Buenaventura,
Present.
Chen, not present. Huser, not present. Stevens,
Present.
Tony,
Present.
quorum is established.
Thank you very much. Well, the first order of business today is public comment. And the State Bar staff will call members of the public in the order that they appear in the attendee pool. Now, if you're participating by Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please click on the hand icon now, that's usually at the bottom of your screen, and the State Bar staff will call upon you when your name comes up in the queue. If you're participating by phone and wish to provide public comment, please press the star key and then the number 9, and the State Bar staff will call on you when it's your turn. If you are participating from a notice location, alert the State Bar staff member or present in the room that you'd like to make comment. We have time restrictions of 3 minutes for each speaker. And if the timer hits the 3-minute mark, I'll ask you to wrap up in 10 seconds. So I'd like to start by asking Kimberly to identify members of the public who signed up in advance of the meeting. Do we have any?
We had no members who signed up in advance. We did receive one written public comment from Ray Hayden, and I do notice he has his hand raised.
Okay. Well, if he is the first, if he appears to be the first person with his hand raised, then please let us hear public comment from Ray Hayden.
You are now unmuted.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you fine. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, this comment is for the Board of Trustees, so I'll be making it more than one meeting. 3 things. First, the people who are currently in the provisionally licensed lawyer program should be, at this point, directly admitted to the practice of law in California. I've talked to the Supreme Court about that, but I'm sure they'd be listening. Referring, of course, to those who are in good standing, who have gone far above the call of duty in their efforts. They are a de facto live test of what a portfolio or internship admission ought to be. Second, the first-year law students examination has dropped the written section for June 2024 and beyond. Thus, the examination ought to be completely objective now, as it always should have been. My understanding is that scaling is going to be introduced, and I quote-unquote get it, but the difficulty level of each individual question is really supposed to be determined at the time it is created. Thus, there should be no need to scale anything. If someone scored the requisite number of questions correctly, they should pass. The pass rate should dramatically improve rapidly because a lot of us out here give away free information to aid people in passing the first-year law students examination. Third and finally, the February 2025 California General Bar Exam is shy some multiple choice questions. In June of 2023, Cal Bar asked me to contact them with my suggestions for the California General Bar Exam, which I did. Part of that was to lose the subjective written section of the examination, which has now taken place on the first-year law students examination, but it really needs to happen on the California General Bar Exam as well. Nothing ought to be suggestive on a high-stakes examination such as this. It must be completely objective. And on that note, the California General Bar Exam must be honestly objective and fair. The MBE was not. It was never determined to be valid by the NCBE or IELTS, and which is why they're doing the new next-gen exam anyway. duplicating the MBE is a sad mistake because everybody says it's unfair and it was never fair. California has an opportunity to be the leader in this process. Please don't let another golden opportunity to be the leader pass you by. Thank you very much. Have a great meeting.
Thank you very much for your comment. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak, who has indicated?
No one else has risen their hand.
Okay, I'm gonna give just a few more seconds, few more moments for anyone who is attending this meeting, would like to make a public comment, to raise your hand or otherwise indicate that you'd like to address the audit committee. Hearing none, I'd like to go ahead and move on with the meeting. The first agenda item is the chair's report and a short oral report from me. I want to thank Trustee Stevens for serving with me on the auditor selection working group. There'll be a discussion item on this yesterday, but I'd like to start by thanking him for working with me on this. I also want to thank Trustees Chen and Buenventura for agreeing to serve as backup chairs for today's meeting if I was delayed at legislative committee hearings. Fortunately, I was not, and here I am. So the next item is minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve today. And I'm going to take them one at a time because I believe they really ought to be voted on one at a time. The first is the minutes of the March 11th, 2024 open session minutes. And I'd like to start off by asking if anyone has any questions or any recommendations for edits. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval of the March 11th minutes.
Motion to approve.
Trustee Buenventura makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Trustee Chen seconds. Can we have the roll call, please?
Barahona,
Aye.
Buenaventura,
Aye.
Chen,
Aye.
User. User is absent. Stevens,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
minutes are adopted.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the same question, which is if anyone has any questions or recommendations for changes for the May 10th, 2024 minutes that we have before us. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for the adoption of the May 10th minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Buenventura,
I believe that was Stevens.
was it Stevens? I'm sorry. Trustee Stevens,
I'll second.
Buenaventura, second. Trustee Buenaventura. May we have a roll call, please?
Barahona,
Aye.
Buenaventura,
Aye.
Chen,
Abstain as I was not present for that meeting.
User. User is absent. Stevens,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
minutes are adopted.
Thank you very much. The next item we have is the consent agenda. It's the only item on the consent agenda is the approval of the Q1 2024 Board and Management Travel Expenses Report. I'd like to open up the item for any questions that anybody may have. Okay. Well, hearing no questions, I would. Oh, we're waiting. Yes. I would entertain a motion. Thank you for putting this on the screen, shared screen. That the Audit Committee adopts the recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the Q1 2024 Board and Management Travel Expense Report.
I'll go ahead and make the motion, Chair Tony.
Thank you, Trustee Buenaventura. I'd entertain a second.
I'll second.
Okay, I'm sorry. I missed that in the screen. Was that Trustee Barahona?
Yes.
Okay, seconds. Very good then. May I ask for a roll call of the vote?
Barahona,
Aye.
Buenaventura,
Aye.
Chen,
Aye.
Huser is absent. Stevens,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you very much, everybody. We are now in the business agenda. And the first item is about the selection of the State Bar's independent financial auditor based on the results of request for proposal evaluation process. And this item is being presented by the State Bar Controller, Coco Zeng. Take it away, Coco.
Hi, thank you, Trustee Tony. And good afternoon, everyone. This is Coco from the Office of Finance at the State Bar. And I'm going to present on the agenda item to request for approval of the selection of independent auditor for the State Bar's new audit contract, which covers the period from 2024 to 2026 with 2 one-year renewal options. First of all, I would like to provide some background information on the contract and go over the process at a high level. The California Business and Professions Code requires the State Bar to contract an independent public accounting firm to conduct their financial audit on its financial statement on an annual basis to complete by May 31st every year. And also, if in any fiscal year that the State Bar received federal award exceeded certain dollar threshold, a single audit is required. And per the State Bar's board policy manual, then an internal control review is required every 5 years under the oversight of the Audit Committee. So all these audits and review are incorporated in the audit contract. And the current contract will expire at the end of 2024. So the State Bar needs to have a new contract in place. Back in April 2024 this year, Finance worked with the State Bar's procurement team to initiate the request for proposal, the RFP process. And by the May submission deadline, that 5 proposals were received by the State Bar. An evaluation staff team comprising of 4 members was formed to assess the proposal. This team included 3 members from Finance and 1 member from the Office of Assets and Inclusion. It was crucial to include OAI as well, as they oversee the single audit and the report related to the Legal Service Trust Fund. So in June, the staff team conducted the thorough evaluation and scoring of the 5 proposals in accordance with the State Bar's procurement and RFP requirements, guidelines, and processes. And in addition to this contracting and procurement requirement, the staff like assessment also consider the accounting firm's technical expertise and resource they have. Given the State Bar implements new government accounting standards every year, it is essential to see the auditor's input for the implementations and also gather information on the best government practices. And at the same time, the State Bar reports the OPED, like other post-employment benefit and pension items in its financial statement. So these are the significant and complex items that State Bar has questions from time to time and require ongoing discussion with the auditors. So therefore, it's important the selected firm will have the sufficient experience and the resource can meet the State Bar's needs. So the staff team performed the detailed review and evaluation and scoring of the proposal and gave the score individually, and also have like several meetings for discussions. And at the direction of the Audit Committee, so the staff team selected and recommended 2 firms with the highest scoring to the committee's working group, like Trustee Tony and Trustee Stevens, for further reviews and evaluations. So both firms are well regarded on government audits and provide good references, demonstrating they have the skill and qualification to provide the required services. So following the committee's working groups review, then it's recommended MGO, the one with the higher scoring, to be awarded to be the auditor for the next contract cycle. So with that, I would like to ask the committee if there are any questions or comments, or if we can have the approval to move forward to award the contract to MGO and include the final contracts in the September board meeting for final approval. Thank you.
Questions, comments? I'll kick it off by saying that this was a process that was undertaken per my request. I believe that an audit committee, one of the key responsibilities of an audit committee is to oversee the choosing of an external auditor. And I am very pleased with the work that the staff did in creating the RFP, in soliciting so that we had 5 firms that submitted applications, submitted proposals, okay, in response to the RFP. One of the things that the staff did that I know I and Trustee Stevens found helpful is they had a scoring rubric that was very detailed on many different criteria. And for myself, it really gave me the confidence that MGO is the most qualified, the most competitive financially. In addition, those 2 things don't always come together, okay? And I'm very pleased with the integrity of the outcome, and it certainly has my complete unqualified support. I'd like to invite Trustee Stevens to share any comments he may have, because he was the trustee who worked most closely with me on this process.
Yeah, I really, really appreciated the thorough approach and all of the sort of efforts to have a front-facing, robust process. Every request that we made, staff was very, very responsive. And the ultimate report, I agree with Chair Tony, that it absolutely made clear that MGO was the way to go.
Thank you very much, Trustee Stevens. Any other questions, comments? Yes, please, Trustee Chin.
So MGO has been our independent auditor in years past. Can you tell us for how long they've done so? And, you know, and I think that they have made some, as you can see from this report, have made some, you know, recommendations that we weren't doing as well as we could on some issues, like with respect to Oracle. And, you know, I know the State Bar has done work to make sure that we are coming into compliance and correcting those issues that they've identified. I'm not raising this because I have any doubt about their ability to maintain independence, but I do note that Business and Professions Code 6145 does require that the board consider the value of continuity along with the risk that continued long-term engagements of an accounting firm may affect the independence of that firm. So I just want to make sure that we have considered that and discussed it, because the statute does require that the board do so.
Thank you very much for bringing up that question, Trustee Chin. Do you want to give a start, Coco, and then anyone?
Yeah, I can start. So this is the 6th year that MGO has been the State Bar's auditor. And like, but this like new proposal and engagement that even it's still with the MGO of this firm, but the team will be different, like a completely different engagement partner and the team. Even the manager will remain the same, but it still can like transfer some knowledges. But the mainly almost the whole team will be even the technical partner, I think, is new to this engagement. So it still would give a fresh like look on audits on State Bar's financial audits, I believe.
Great. I appreciate that, and I think that, you know, and I trust Trustee Tony to have done a searching review of this. I think that in the future, when we're doing this, just to make sure we're complying with the code, I think it's good to just include some mention of that charge that, you know, the statute requires of the board and some consideration of those issues. I do think that continuity is valuable. It's good to know that there is going to be a new team assigned to this, but I think it's just something the board should keep an eye on.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Absolutely, Trustee Chen. I think you're absolutely right. And going through this process of an RFP and selection is what has allowed us, I believe, to do it in a more thorough fashion than when that didn't happen.
Right.
So
Totally
that's
agree.
the purpose of this. And hopefully it sets an example for the next time that this process happens. What happened this time, just, you know, especially for the benefit of people who are newer, is there wasn't a thorough review by the audit committee. And my recommendation was that we award a 1-year extension to give us time to go through a thorough process. And that's what we ended up doing. So the reason that MGO has been the auditor for 6 years, these are generally 5-year contracts, just for background. And I had, you know, very much said, I think it's important for us to you know, not award a 5-year contract without going through a detailed process, which I feel pretty comfortable we have. Trustee Stevens, please.
Yeah, and just to echo that, I think Trustee Chen is absolutely right. We need to acknowledge the code requirements and in fact that they were followed. And I can represent that. One of the things I actually looked at very closely, I read every single bio of every proposed team member, and that was important to me. And it was also important to confirm, as Araceli did, that it was a shakeup of the existing team, such that only the manager for that continuity through line was going to be the same, and then everybody else was new. So we had a fresh set of eyes, and that was important.
That's great. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you for clarifying that, Trustee Stevens. This is why I so much appreciated your participation in this working group. I certainly couldn't have done it on my own. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, other questions and comments? Hearing none, if I could ask for the resolution to be put up, I sure appreciate it. All right. This resolution, and I'm gonna ask for clarification from staff here. Does the audit committee have the authority to approve this? It's a pretty big amount. Or do we recommend it and it's approved at the July board meeting? I'm only asking because of the amount.
Chair, I believe this should say recommends the selection, and then the full approval will go to the board.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I just, don't want to have to take two votes, take another vote later on. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to adopt the selection of, to recommend the selection of MGO to serve as the State Bar's independent audit firm for the next 3 years with 2 one-year optional renewals.
I'll move it.
Trustee Chen, thank you very much. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second,
Stevens.
Stevens, thank you very much. It's on the side. I can't always see. Thank you. May we have a call of the vote, please?
Barahona,
Aye.
Buenaventura,
Aye.
Chen,
Aye.
User, absent, Stevens,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Very good, thank you. And we need to make sure that the minutes reflect that Trustee Chen joined after the initial roll call, just so that we have that, okay? So let's see where we're at. We are at the annual report for the Office of Public Trust Liaison. Do we have our Public Trust Liaison to be promoted?
Yes, he's being promoted.
Very good.
Hello.
Welcome, Enrique. We're very interested in hearing your 5-minute review of the annual report for the Office of Public Trust Liaison.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here and happy to bring you guys up to speed. Well, let's get started. First of all, can you guys see my screen, everybody?
I can see it just fine.
Wonderful. Okay. So my name is Enrique Zuniga. I'm the Public Trust Liaison for the State Bar, California. And today I'm going to be presenting on the 2023 Office of Public Trust Liaison Annual Report. This is the inaugural report for the office. And this report is going to cover the type of inquiries received, the accomplishments, recommendations, and future plans. First thing I want to talk about is part of the Office of the Public Trust Liaison is the State Bar's Contact Center, which received and serviced an average of 10,837 calls per month. We currently have 8 public trust representatives servicing these calls. We noticed that the most popular call from the public is for certified lawyer referral services. And our contact center can be reached by dialing the 800 number you see here, which is 1-800-843-9053. Or you can also dial the 415-538-2250. Now, what I want to talk about is the type of inquiries that we received. The office had a very busy year, fielding over 575 inquiries from the public. Those are written inquiries requesting some type of assistance from the public trust liaison. Out of those 575, 480 were successfully resolved by the end of 2023, and the remaining were resolved in the early 2024. Inquiries related to attorney misconduct made up the bulk of the requests at 63%. This included questions about filing a complaint, the status of such complaint, or how to submit additional information on an ongoing complaint. The second most common topic was admissions at 16%, which included questions about how to register for the bar exam, how to apply for testing accommodations, or general questions about moral character applications. The remaining 21% was made up of other areas of the bar, such as lawyer referral services, fee arbitration. However, one of the things that we noticed that made up a notable number of these other requests were requests for assistance with the deceased attorney. We noticed that our website did not have much information on this topic, and this prompted our office to establish a webpage with information on what to do when an active attorney dies. The establishment of this webpage directly correlated with the decrease in inquiries about this topic moving forward. It had an immediate impact. This was one of our first accomplishments. The inquiries alerted us to a blind spot. We acted to resolve that issue. Another accomplishment was the outreach and public education efforts that included engagements with Spanish news media, radio placements, and social media campaigns during the March of 2023, which led to an unprecedented surge in phone call volume and more than 100 inquiries in the month of April alone. For comparison, before the outreach, the average was 30. The phone call volume is relevant because when we reviewed the data of these calls, we realized that the most common call, as stated earlier, were requests for lawyer referral services from the public. This led us to improve our LRS landing page on our website to make it easier to navigate. And the purpose of the inquiries was to allow us to notice emerging trends. And this helped us make a series of recommendations on improvements. We made several recommendations, for example, on how the bar handles additional mail from complaining witnesses on closed complaints against attorneys. Another common inquiry was the tone of the bar's emails towards applicants and on the admission side. So inquiries on this topic noted a harsh or convoluted tone by both applicants and law school staff. So one of our recommendations was to maintain a neutral tone in written communications with law school applicants and law schools. Now, a look ahead. I want to introduce the Attorney-Client Bridge Program. This is a new initiative to 2024, and we just refer to this as the Bridge Program. It's a front-end alternative to the complaint process. It aims to address the issues of communication breakdowns between clients and challenges between attorney and clients when a return of file is requested. We would like to resolve these issues amicably without clients having to resort to the formal complaint process. Again, like a lot of things in our office, this was also birthed from a need. During our first year, there was a demographic of the public that wanted to receive help in returning a file or maybe resuming communication, but they didn't necessarily want to file a complaint. So we came up with this front end alternative to resolve issues without involving a formal complaint process. This is the first year we were going to be launching this, and the data obtained during our first year will serve as a benchmark moving forward. This was the brief overview of the highlights of the report. And at this time, if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Enrique, for this presentation. I'm gonna open it up for questions, comments. Yes, Trustee Buenaventura.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Enrique, for your presentation. It was very informative, and it was a lot of stuff there that I really was interested in knowing more about. I'll just throw some of my questions out, and you can take them as you please. Could you tell me what the hours are for people to be able to call in? Are there after hours where they can call? That's number one. Number two, is there a mechanism for, let's say, an inmate in the jail or something to receive calls, for you folks to receive calls from them by way of either a collect call or something that will enable them to come through and discuss their case with you without having that barrier of sort of that communication? And then also, when it comes to language access, are there translation services that you utilize to make the communication easier for those who have different languages, different dialects that they need help on? And I think that's, let me ask you to address those if you could.
Sure. I'll start off with the hours. The hours for the contact center, that's to speak to a live representative, are from 8:30 to 3 o'clock. However, after hours, anybody that wants to submit an inquiry, can you do so in writing? We receive those through the weekend and any time of day. The second question is, do we have a mechanism to receive calls from institutions like jail and sometimes, yes, we do. The answer is yes. That's the nature of the 800 number. A lot of those institutions allow inmates and incarcerated people to dial out an 800 number. So we do actually receive a lot of inquiries on the phone from those institutions. And the third question asked about language. We currently contract with a language line that provides translation services in 247 languages. In the event that a language is requested, we can bring in essentially a third-party call and do a conference call where they would provide live translation on the spot.
And then do you have occasions to have communication beyond the telephone? Like, for example, do you allow for video or Zoom type discussions, or in person, if someone wanted to come in and talk to someone live and in person, can that happen?
You know, at the moment is exclusively the phone contact center. We are working on an omni-channel approach, which would include chatting, live chatting. And in the past, when people would come into the office, that hasn't happened much since COVID, but in the past, they would be connected. There's phones on the bottom that would go directly to the contact center. And if they file a public trust liaison inquiry form and that requires me to call, I do call them back.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Zuniga. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Other questions? While we're waiting, I will say that what I'm most impressed about this report is the analysis of trends and transforming those into structural change. And that is not very common in state agencies. Okay, I gotta tell you. And it's actually remarkable. And I encourage the state bar to seek ways to make sure that the report gets a little bit of coverage, if possible, because it is quite notable. That and we're talking about in short periods of time, within weeks or months, these websites going up, okay, changes being made, and then to have evidence that it's making a difference. It's reducing calls, okay? It's not reducing calls because we're making it harder for people to reach us, which is one way to reduce calls, but because we're giving people an alternative to have their questions answered more quickly, more efficiently, more self-sufficiently. That is worthy of notice. So I really want to thank you, Enrique. I also want to acknowledge that when a member of the public had sent me an email requesting some help about a testing accommodation. And I'm like, what do I know about this? Okay, I know nothing about these tests. I forwarded it to Enrique. I asked him, is this the kind of thing the Public Trust Liaison does? He said, absolutely. And within one day, he sent me an email back saying that the issue was resolved. I think that's remarkable. I want to acknowledge you for that. And if there are no other burning questions, I want to keep going so we can finish this agenda on time.
I'll just add
Please.
2 seconds, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder to the trustees that the attorney-client bridge program that Enrique mentioned is part of the diversion program that we have been talking about, that we've requested funding for as part of the attorney licensing fee. And it is one of the 2 components of our request to improve our public protection efforts that the legislature has seen fit to provide funding for. And so although the legislation is not yet final, we remain very hopeful that the funding for the diversion program, which would include additional support for that attorney-client bridge program, will be successful and will be able to expand those efforts.
Thank you for placing that in context, Donna, and reminding us that the bridge program is part of the diversion program. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Enrique. Really appreciate your outstanding work. You make the state bar look good and you do us proud.
Thank you, everybody. My pleasure.
All right. Next, we have the receipt of the fiscal year 2023 single audit results. And who's going to kick us off with that? Is it Annie or someone? Okay, we'll say Heidi, please, Heidi Slater.
Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Slater. I am the acting program manager for the Office of Access and Inclusion. The State Bar receives federal funds from 2 pass-through agencies. First, the COVID-19 coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds that are passed through the Judicial Council of California. And second, the COVID-19 homeowner assistance funds passed through the Cal HFA Homeowner Relief Corporation. These federal funds are administered by the Office of Access and Inclusion and are distributed as grants to the eligible legal aid nonprofits in California, as defined by the Qualified Legal Service Projects and Qualified Support Centers by California Business and Professions Code, Section 6213. As a recipient of federal funds, the State Bar is required to have a single audit conducted for the fiscal year of 2023. Title 2 of the CFR, Subtitle A, Chapter 2, Section 200.501 requires a single audit each year that a non-federal entity expends $750,000 or more in federal awards during its fiscal year. The purpose of the single audit is to ensure that the federal awards are used appropriately and in compliance with all applicable federal requirements and regulations. The State Bar has contracted with MGO to conduct the single audit of its 2 federal awards for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023. MGO issued its report on June 21st, 2024. The single audit conducted by MGO included a review of the financial statement, compliance, and internal controls, and the single audit was resulted in no findings or question costs. Now I will turn it over to Louie, who is our engagement partner at MGO, to present the results of that audit.
Thank
Thank
you
you for the
very much.
introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Louie. I am the engagement partner for the State Bar's fiscal year 23 single audit. We have previously presented on the results of the financial statement audit, so my presentation today will focus on the compliance side. This is the second year that the State Bar had to undergo a single audit, and as introduced in the introduction, we did issue an unmodified opinion over compliance for the State Bar's federal programs. There were 2 federal programs that were subject to audit, primarily because they are both of the higher dollar amount under the thresholds specified by the Office of Management and Budget, and because they were designated as higher risk. And for those reasons, both programs were required to be audited in fiscal year 23. As part of our audit, we obviously performed tests of controls, tests of compliance with applicable grant requirements, but we also had to, we were also required to consider controls over compliance. And I'm happy to report that there were no deficiencies in controls over compliance that we were required to report to you. You can see in the single audit report, there's basically 2 components. One is the compliance side of things, and then the other related to financial statements. So at the end of the report, the last section is known as the status of prior audit findings that is prepared by State Bar Management. And it basically reports on any findings that the State Bar may have had in the prior year. Both of the findings that are currently included in the single audit report related financial statement findings, so it did not relate to the compliance side of things. I had already presented on those in the prior discussion on financial statement audit, but I am happy to report again that the both of the findings have determined to be corrected in fiscal year 23. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present my audit results to you. I'll take any questions that the audit committee may have at this time.
Thank you very much, both Heidi and Annie, and the floor is open for questions. One nice thing about good news is there are always fewer questions when there's good news than when there's bad news. So I certainly don't expect a lot of questions, but I want to make sure if anybody has any, that you feel like you've been afforded the opportunity. And am I correct that this is not an action item that requires a vote?
That's correct.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Well, I am going to thank Heidi Slater and Annie Louie for making the presentation on the 2023 single audit. And, you know, if you have any questions later that come to you, I am sure that Elizabeth will be able to help you get in touch with them. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So the final item that I see on today's agenda is the update on the State Bar DEI Leadership Seal. And I believe we have Elizabeth Nolan, our committee coordinator, kicking off the presentation.
That's correct. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm presenting and reporting back to the committee on the State Bar's attainment of the gold tier of the DEI Leadership Seal. This update is formally provided to the Audit Committee because the pursuit of the seal was initiated in part by the committee's 2022 to 2023 work plan. The DEI Leadership Seal is an optional program that recognizes legal employers with California licensed attorneys that commit to and implement research-driven actions that further workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion. The seal has 3 tiers: gold, silver, and bronze. In December 2023, the State Bar achieved the gold tier of the DEI Leadership Seal, reflecting the organization's implementation of 9 action items. The Office of Human Resources submits the State Bar's application and any renewals to outside experts for assessment. A full list of the State Bar's action items can be found in the written agenda item, but these generally include improved demographic data collection and analysis, along with training on recognizing and reducing implicit bias and measuring progress on DEI objectives and metrics. I'm happy to take any questions.
I think gold is good from the 3 tiers. It sounds like it's the highest tier, and that's a big plus. I also appreciate the fact that the State Bar did not stand in judgment of itself, but had the good judgment that it'd be more meaningful to have independent outside evaluators to score and assess where the State Bar as an employer falls in the DEI Leadership Seal. I think that was very wise to do. So I'm opening up for any questions then. Elizabeth.
No, I'm so sorry, Chair.
Barahona, please.
No questions, just really excited to see the progress that's been made and all the documentation. I think we can be a really big leader here in DEI in California at the State Bar. So just really pleased to see what we saw, and thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you very much, Trustee Barahona. So in terms of I'm going to ask you to remind me, Elizabeth, in terms of the scope of, because this is strictly voluntary on the, for law firms, if you could give a little bit more information about where we're at now with, firms in California, and what the plans might be to see if more firms could get in.
I don't have that information in front of me. I know that the Office of Human Resources and Strategic Communications work very closely on this, so I'm happy to get that information back to you. But it seems to be a program that's of interest across the state, but I was just reporting for the State Bar's own attainment.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And there's no urgency on that, and it's something that we can discuss at a later point. It's very, very good news to hear that the State Bar did well and will continue to do so. So before we wrap up today's meeting, are there any other comments or questions? Well, hearing none, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and we will see you in July at the board meeting, in person or virtually. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.